Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 1 of the Real Advisor podcast, TRAP, TRAP. In the digital studio with me are the 3 other horsemen of the apocalypse, my good friends Carl Wild West Widger, Andrew Call Me Andy Hart, and Alan the Storyteller Smith. Before I go any further, another reminder, please do follow us on Twitter at Advisor Podcast. That's your conduit to get to us, to leave ideas for the show, things you'd like us to talk about, things you think the show's really good at. If you want to give us little criticisms and things we shouldn't be doing that you don't like, let us know. This is a conversation. It's a conversation between the 4 of us here, but it's also a conversation with you, the audience out there. And please do leave a 5 out of 5 review on iTunes if you could do so. That really, really does help us. My name is Nicholas Richard Lincoln, Nick Dick Lincoln to my friends, the eternal gift from my parents, 53 years and counting. Thanks, Mum and Dad. Love you both. Without any further ado, let's have a look at the guys. They're all there ready to go. We've got some topics to discuss in this initial episode. Mr. Carl Wild West Widger, you recently held an event, I believe, in your neck of the woods, the Wild West of Limerick. Do you want to tell us what you did, sir? Because I know all the advisors listen to this. Holding events is a big thing, and you held a big one, so crack on.
Client event.
Yeah, so we've... look, over the last few years, we've done a number of different events. So some were more successful than others. So we just held an event called Future You. Future You was designed as a kind of 2-day conference that we put together in order to try and walk the walk and say to people that, look, we're always talking about living your best life, and that is not just your money. So yeah, of course, the financial planning part is really important, but can we bring some speakers, some expertise together to help people take some time out of their busy lives, just take some time out to plan and to see, what actually matters most to me? What are the things that me and my partner should be focusing on? So I did a talk on financial planning. We did a really good legal and tax guy did a talk about wills, inheritance, that kind of stuff. We had then some people who've kind of been there, done that, and they were really interesting because they kind of spoke about the stuff that they wished they had planned for, or the things that they wished they had done before they got into this mega transition. One thing that kept coming up was that, the word retirement really isn't appropriate anymore. It's this third act. It's this transition into something different, and I think that was really good and generated a lot of really great discussions in the breaks, etc. We then in the afternoon had focused on wellness, I suppose. So I kind of from 2 fronts. We had a sports scientist talking about physical fitness, nutrition, and then we had a psychologist talking about, minding your mental health and preparing your mind for a big transition like this as well, because that often gets kind of brushed aside. Day 2, then we did a couple of panel discussions, which followed on from a yoga session and a swim in the sea, and talk about Wild West. That was the Wild West, and that was bloody cold, but fantastic and created some great energy. However, I would have to say that we got some feedback, and I knew it myself. The energy in the room kind of flattened a small bit with the panel discussions. So whilst the previous day TED Talks went down so well, and the evening time was magnificent, the dinner was brilliant, the energy, the panel discussions really didn't work. So that's something that we will change. But it was so well received. The feedback was so good in general. We will do it again. And I suppose that kind of feedback is gold, because it'll make the next version of Future You even better. So yeah, look, as I said, we've done some really good events and some not so good events. And you got to take the risk, in my view, and do these things. And this was a risk that was well worth taking, and we are very glad that we took the risk. It went really, really well overall.
Couple of questions, Carl, that I know the listeners will want to ask. So how many people attended? Did you charge? Did you not charge? Who did you decide to come? Clients, existing clients, etc.? So that sort of stuff. Okay.
So, we charged. I suppose the price point was important. We did kick this around a little bit. It wasn't for us to make money, but what we did was we charged €1,000 per attendee, and each attendee could bring their spouse, partner, better half, free of charge. So it was €1,000 whether you came in your own or whether you brought your partner with you. we had 78 people in the room. Now, so when I say 78 people in the room at dinner that night, that included the speakers as well. But really, really good energy. And I think part of that really good energy came from about half of the people in the room were already clients of ours, so we're bought in and we're just taking that little bit of extra time. And then half were not clients of ours at all. So whilst we didn't make money on it straight up, we'd be hoping to get a number of new clients from it, which would be great for us. But I do think that really helped the energy in the room. And then the other thing that really helped the energy in the room was it was kind of 50-50 between business owners, so people like ourselves, and then people who were senior VPs and multinationals, etc. So a nice split, and I think that definitely helped the energy. But by the way, I should just say, one thing that almost everybody said in their feedback forms was more group activity. So kind of the off the wall stuff like the swimming in the sea, and people were saying there was gorgeous walks we could have done that, could we do more of that? And that just tells you people were learning from each other, not necessarily just from the stage. So an important bit of,
I think that's
a gold nugget there.
Yeah, when you get people together, it is this sort of breakout rooms. When we do our own work, when we go to conferences and things ourselves, often it's just the so-called round the coffee machine or the water cooler. Some of the conversations that happen are just the gold, they're just spontaneous. But first, hats off to you for doing it. It's something that we have never really cracked. We've done a few like corporate hospitality type things and gone and laid out a fair bit of cash to go and take a bunch of clients to Wimbledon or to something else like that. Just sort of. And it's been okay, but it hasn't been. We've never done anything like how you've described. That sounds like a big event. I mean, I'm interested. So you did it over 2 days, and so you'll presumably all stay overnight at a hotel.
Yeah, so we did it in a place called the Armada Hotel. We should definitely go down there and record a podcast down there. Absolutely amazing place. A little bit remote, right? It's on the literally on the Atlantic Ocean.
Everything's remote in your neck of the woods, Gog, for us.
Yeah, not as remote as you think it is, Nick. And as I said to you offline, we do now have electricity and running water, so that's real progress.
Congratulations!
But
Hey!
There's going to be a lot more of these coming.
So just for the listeners and viewers, I knew he had a few of those lined up, so I'm just giving him. I'm just feeding him.
Overall, Carl, you'd I always say it's kind of scary, isn't it? You don't know if you're going to get. I mean, I must say, €1,000 that's not cheap, really, is it? It's a decent price point. It's not inexpensive. I'm sure it's great value for money. You got to stay a night in what sounds like a fabulous hotel and a great location and a lot of value. But you have to position that appropriately for someone just to cut a check or give you a credit card.
Yeah, so for business owners, obviously they can put it through their businesses, a business expense, and then for the kind of corporate executives, the companies would have paid in order to, get an additional benefit. They're all looking to retain their staff and looking to what extra can we do.
All they got enough money themselves, and it's peanuts for the value that they're going to get from it. They've got this transition that's coming up that they're going to have to prepare for it.
We got lots of straight up feedback, as I said, as to how we can make it better, and nobody mentioned the price.
Charge more.
The price point was good. I do have to say that Susan Walsh here in Metis organized the whole gig. She came up with the name Future You, which we love and we're going to hang on to. And talk about stress and pressure. Like, it was a lot of stress. I know Susan had sleepless nights. So these things don't come around easily. They don't just happen. You guys know it. Andy, I know you do humans under management. I know you know the effort that goes into these things. So look, if you're going to do, you got to commit it. You got to try and do the most world-class event you can possibly do within your budgets.
Agreed.
I think that's really, really important. Otherwise, it just looks a bit cheap and cheerful, and that's not going to help your brand really at all, is it?
Can I ask a question about
we've all been to events when... Go on, Nick.
Sorry, Andy. €1,000 is a nice round number. Did you? I mean, I can imagine I would sweat for days thinking what's the appropriate sort of ticket price, because I wouldn't have any idea where to start. Did it just come to that round number because that just about covered the cost of everyone turned up, or was that conscious? Did you really think about how to get to €1,000 and not 1,500 or 750?
Yeah, I'll tell you the truth in that. We were willing to do it as a bigger loss leader than it was. and we spoke to our panelists, so the people who were giving the talks, and especially listened to the people who have been there, done that. So the people who said, this is what I would have really wanted. And they told us to increase the price in order to make sure that we had the right audience there. And it was spot on advice. And that just goes back to the whole point about listening to the people with experience. Because I thought it was too high. I was really worried that it was too high. But it was, we totally nailed it, I think.
Did you have any call-offs last minute?
None whatsoever.
Wow. See that? Oh, wow. That's what I've done things in the past, and you just there's always something happens, isn't there? There's a
if you give something
sick at
free,
home or something. Well, that's the point.
If you give something for free, Alan, but
exactly right. This is
invested the money.
This is the whole science, isn't it, about pricing and giving away stuff for free or making it a bit painful not to go, because no one wants to waste €1,000.
We had, I think, two people who were coming as a couple, and due to kids stuff, the one of the spouses didn't come, but actually made it down that night and joined us for the dinner or whatever. So there you go. But nobody pulled out. I mean, you're normally factoring in a 20% dropout or something like that.
Sure, yeah.
None at all.
Brilliant.
And we were kind of worried that it would look a little bit sparse if you drop 20% out of 78. That's a big deal.
I think free events is about a 20% drop off. Paid events are about 10% drop off. Highly paid events are probably about a 5% drop off. So the fact that you didn't really get any, I think, sir, is great.
Well, you're very good with harm, Andy, aren't you? Because you say categorically on there, if you can't make it, that's down to you. There's no refunds.
Yeah, because it's incredibly disruptive to a conference business that has to pay a load of refunds, and before you know it, you're underwater, and it's just a logistical nightmare. It's a little bit like an airline or a rugby ticket. They're not going to give you a refund once you bought it. I mean, if there is certain cases, I say I'll give you a credit for next year or something, but it's just a bit of a logistical nightmare. So just to sort of finish this topic off, this is client events, and Alan's dabbled in it. Carl's very much in it. Me and Nick, I haven't done any direct client events. I've done loads of, events for financial advisors. I mean, I've got a relatively small client bank. I don't know, 50 ongoing clients or something. And, 200-300 people I probably have done business with. So it's not too small, but yeah, I haven't really decided. I haven't chosen to do any client events. Nick, over to you on that.
Taking a client out to lunch is an event for me. And and it can be a real event. That's it. That's how I do the socializing one-to-one. I don't know. I don't have that mindset, and I don't think I would get the value from it that Carl, which is a much bigger operation with more clients and more staff, would get the value from it. They would give me the screaming abdabs even thinking about it.
Just again, thinking about wider client events. I mean, most of them that we see are sport related. So cricket, golf, tennis, football, rugby. Sometimes I see events that are very much topic specific, usually inheritance tax at some random golf course or something like that. I know there are some firms that are very aggressive with like mail shots and getting client events. Usually they're totally new clients. But yeah, have we got anything else to add to this whole client event subject?
Carl, you are going to do it again, right? You've learned from it. The exact same thing. Do the future you, another version of that.
I think you should rinse and repeat, tweak, rinse and repeat. Tweak, rinse and repeat.
Register that name if you haven't done.
Yeah. One of the things we're thinking about is, do we do it in kind of two locations? Because we didn't have, we'd very few people from our kind of Dublin client base or our prospect list. So it was just too long of a drive. So I'm actually talking to my Dublin team next week, and we're going to consider whether we do that. So we may actually do it in two locations next year. We'll see. But I do think the why it worked was we got people away. Nobody could go home. It was too far away to go home. So everybody stayed. The energy in the room, guys, it was so much fun. We did a charity piece, which we always do. We did an interview with Terry and Brendan Ring of Cleanest Foundation, and that went down so well. And I know that they've got massive support from that as well. So, but the energy in the room, it was just magnificent.
Do you know, I sense that now that we are emerging, sort of blinking into the sunlight of the post-COVID environment, and we're all living our lives now, aren't we, online? Much more so, certainly for me, much more than you guys as well. Most of your client meetings, if not all.
Yeah.
And just meeting other human beings in the same room and just having, as you say, the spontaneous, the chit-chats and stuff. We've been craving it. Human beings are social animals. So your timing's very good for this as well. I think there's a lot of pent-up demand for everyone just to get together with like-minded people. So it's great.
Totally. And look, my final point on that, Andy, you just mentioned, the golf course or whatever. So there's so much of that stuff happens, but this was about the partnerships, so the husband and wife, the partners or whatever. And that really went down really, really well. And I got to know a lot of partners that I didn't know that well, and that was a major plus for me as well.
Yeah, there's tremendous value in that. You'll we're always asked to what's the ROI on any of these big projects, aren't we? And I know you must have been at your company. They must have said how do you measure it? And that's a real benefit to get to know the partners. Your client's partners.
Yeah, look, it's another podcast altogether about the difference between brand building and client catching. We managed to strike kind of both, I think, in this event. But guys, look, I'm talking about an event that went really, really well. We've done some ones that were like not good at all. So like that's
we'll come back to those at a future episode. We'd like to know all the disasters as well. But
yeah. And they're probably more interesting and funny. But anyway, yeah, drive on.
Well, that's great.
Right. Let's tie a bow in that one.
It sounds condescending, but I think me as a little one-man band firm, I think that's absolutely bloody tremendous what you've done.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's great.
Fantastic.
Really good.
Cheers, boys.
Okay, so Carl is talking about working with the clients you've already got and forming deeper relationships with them and their partners and so forth. But I had a chat this week with a financial advisor that all of us in the group know, or certainly three of us do, and he's leaving to go on his own. He's been with a number of firms, and now he's going to set up his own firm. And he's appreciably younger than me, and he came to me. We had a Zoom meeting because he wants to know how, what are the ways that you acquire clients, you grow your client bank. Now, I'm a bit of a funny choice to ask because I went out on my own in 2008, and I had a storming and forming stage back then, but now I've got a mature business, and I don't go looking for clients. I only get them by referral, and I turn away as many clients as I take on, and I get turned away by as many clients as well. So I'm not really sort of out there pulling in clients, looking for clients. But I spoke to this chap for about an hour on Zoom, and I imagine you do the normal things we did pre-COVID. So it's things like networking. I'm not even sure if B&I is still around, but that kind of thing. You want to talk to your introducers, your solicitors and accountants. We've got the internet now, which I didn't have. We had in 2008, but not to the same degree. So you can do blogs, you can do podcasts. And I thought when the meeting finished, I thought, is there anything I'm particularly missing? Pressing your existing clients really, really, really hard for referrals.
What if you haven't got any? He's a startup. Is he starting a brand new company? He might not even have.
No, he has got a handful of clients.
He's got a handful of clients. Okay.
He's got a handful of clients. So over to you, guys. I mean, what would you? We're all at different stages with our business. What would be your ideas for growing your client bank? Was there anything I missed from the obvious kind of almost cliched routes to doing so?
Go.
All right. Well, I'll kick us off. When you set up a new business, you've got to live, sleep, and breathe. Sales. A lot of people focus so much time on the logo, the website, the business cards. Historically, I mean, these are all just boring admin in the background. You've got to go out there and get clients. I mean, obviously, you've got to have somewhat, your ducks in a row and some of the branding sort of down, but don't over stress about it. So yeah, you've got to live, sleep, and breathe it. I think a route that I have seen at younger advisors setting up new firms, they do focus on life insurance and insurance type products because it's good cash flow for the business. It depends on how many clients they've got to start with. Yeah, what sort of social circles they're in, what clubs they're part of. Lawyers and accountants we've mentioned. And then you've got all the digital ways, but digital promotion these days takes a long time. If you're starting a creative project, you should really think, I'm not going to see any results for this for about 30 months. That's what they say in the content creation world. That's if you're doing blogging, YouTube channels, podcasts, that sort of stuff. So that's a much slower burn, it takes a lot longer time to see any results. So it's got to consume you. You've got to live, sleep, and breathe it. I've got this big thing about jobs, careers, and callings. I believe all four of us on the call have got a calling, whatever that is, but it's more than obviously a job, and it's a little bit more than the career. So it's just got to consume you, really. And everything you do is about trying to get new clients. And in an ideal world, you've got a bit of a burn rate, a personal burn rate yourself. So you've got minimum 3 months in the bank, but that's cutting it a bit tight, probably between 6 and 12 months, I'd say. I think that's sort of a sweet spot.
So I'd say longer. So my take on this, and funnily enough, I spoke somewhat about this at an event recently, which we might come back to later on. Octo members, and it was about exactly this, about growing your client base, growing your revenue, and using perhaps more modern digital methods to do so. And I just speak from not as if I'm any remote expert, but we've kind of doubled down on our activity as a firm the last 6 months, really 6-9 months on this, with some positive results. But completely agree with what Andy says. If you're starting up anything, you need to know your burn rate, and I would have 12 to 18 months if I could. I'd assume I'm not going to make anything. All right, if you've, as you say, if you've got sold some products or some policies, but in terms of real proper planning clients, even if you bring one on, it's a long game, isn't it? And you've got bills to pay and mouths to feed and so on. So I'd be, first of all, if I was thinking of doing this, I'd be planning way ahead. So I've got to build up my cash buffer, number one. I assume I'm not going to earn a penny, maybe for 12 to 18 months. And what we all know is the internet is both a blessing and a curse. It is fantastic because you can connect with anyone in theory, and we are no longer geographically dependent. You don't have to deal with people within 5 miles radius. You deal with anyone across the country, which is fantastic. But also so can everyone else, and so can your competitors. So how do you stand out? How do you stand out from the crowd of all the thousands of other people? And I don't know about you, if you go on LinkedIn or anything else, I see just loads of messages from personal finance and finance coaches and certain big brands and national brands and so on that promote themselves. To my mind, and it's been talked about ad infinitum forever, but the concept of niching down or being a sector specialist, really identifying the sort of clients you want to work with, where you've got specific like domain expertise, and the narrower the better, really. And because all of a sudden you're going to stand out if you deal with, I don't know, let's just make one up. If you deal with dentists, and someone is a dentist and he sees stuff that are inundated with information, and he sees something, specific retirement planning, the 3-step process for dentists to retire successfully. Well, that's going to capture a little bit of your attention. And there's a methodology, there's a way of doing this stuff. I'm learning as we go, but certainly you can build up a reputation, you can build up traction, and one thing leads to another. And eventually you find yourself in the sectors where these people hang out, and you found yourself, you'll get invited to conferences, you read the books and the magazines that these or whoever it is that you're targeting, and you speak their language. And every profession, every type of person, every business owner, whatever they're into, has their own words and language. You start, you realize, or your prospects realize you're one of them. And where are they going to go when they do need financial advice? A generic guide down the road, or someone who's an absolute specific expert on all the issues, key and the challenges, what I refer to as the 3 a.m. moments. What are the 3 a.m. moments for your unique micro sector? And then just there's a book, I know we were speaking about it before, there's a book called Show Your Work, a guy called Austin Kleon, there he just as right on time.
That's amazing that just happened.
Well, we're talking about it before, weren't we? And you could sum up that book. I mean, it is a good book and it's worth reading, but you sum it up by saying all the work you're doing anyway, just show it, put it out there, show it to the world, because 99% of people will ignore it because it's irrelevant, but 1% is more than enough for anyone to handle.
Yeah, we say do your work in public. Whenever
do your work in public, publish it.
Whenever a client asks you similar recurring questions, don't just hide it within the email inbox. Put a blog together about it.
Exactly. That email response you gave to the client.
Yeah, it's all
dress
hidden,
it up, post it. Just do that.
Do a quick video. Do as I say, do your work in public.
Share it. The stuff that we all think is just basic, because we've got to think. We've got knowledge bias. We know this stuff. We think it's really simple and easy. And to some other people, think, oh, that's quite interesting. So you share it as time goes on. And the summing up of this is, if you're starting from scratch with a handful of clients, how many clients do you really need to have a thriving practice, a thriving business? What are you going to say? Anything from 50 to 100? Not much more than that, I wouldn't have thought. So you just target that audience and go after, say, I need 50 of these people. And then once you've got a few, as you say, there's a whole different strategy about referral marketing, which we can talk about later on. But there's that's how I would start. I'd share my work. Do you agree, Carl, or do you have a different view?
Look, I think everything you've said is relevant, right? And I think it's stuff that all good firms should be doing. But Andy alluded to it, right? If you're going to look at content creation, you're looking at a kind of a longer game. I'll come at it from my own perspective and where I came from. So when I started on my own, I was a necessity entrepreneur. So it was back in the financial crisis, and I had to basically make a cut and say, okay, I got to do this on my own. And I needed to make $8,000 a month in order to feed my kids and pay the mortgage and pay off some stupid short-term debt and all that good stuff, right? So what did I do? I didn't look at doing a lot of content creation. I had a few clients, but only a very few. And I looked at them and I said, okay, who are the clients that value my service most? And then I said, okay, I'm going to hone in on those, and then I'm going to try and see where did those people hang out. And that's I tried to literally go to the opening of an envelope at that stage. And I did. And I know, Alan, you disagree with me, right? But I went to a lot of stuff that was probably a waste of time, or as they say, I kissed a lot of frogs, right? But that's what I did. And I think going back to the point that Andy made earlier on, sometimes we can, be very evangelical about these things and forget about that word sales. And sales is doing a lot of calls. Yes, with the right type of people, if you can find them, but at the start, that can be a little bit harder. But doing a lot of calls, that's whether they're remote, whether they're coffees, whether they're at events.
You need to be hearing no a lot. Go for no.
And accept that no is going to come your way.
Yeah.
But doing it consistently over time. And I tweeted something yesterday because I was thinking, I knew we were going to be having this conversation. I said, what is the one thing I would say to the guy? I actually don't know this guy that Nick is talking about. I'd say you gotta build up your resilience. If you have that resilience factor and just go out and do it. And I think, Alan, what you're talking about is 100% true. And that's what we're doing in Menace, right? He's trying to do, right? And you're doing it fantastically well in terms of your Twitter content or whatever. But I do think that's for a little bit down the line or a little bit more mature. That's not to say you shouldn't be doing it at the start.
Yeah, they're not mutually exclusive. Exactly. I'm saying give it 12 to 18 months and just build your personal brand. That's a whole other conversation to talk about. Build your personal brand. Get known as an expert in something. But every day create your content, post your content. But you're right. You still got to feed yourself. So
it's the 80-20, 80-20, 20% on the.
Do you know what I would do though?
On the old school.
I'll tell you what I would do. I would go to, if you've got a handful of clients. I mean, presumably all of them, depending how many that means, but every one of them, I'd say, I really value your opinion. Can I buy you breakfast? Can I buy you coffee? Can I buy you lunch? I'd really love to pick your brains. Can we get together? So it's not about you don't take up their time or their own sort of, personal finances and so on. And share that and just say, I'm launching something myself. I'm going under my own steam. I'd like to ask for your feedback. What about my service have you enjoyed in the past? What else would you suggest I do a bit differently in my new setup? And who else should I be speaking to? And I think most people, if they're going to stay with you and follow you, most people of your clients are advocates. They want you to succeed and to thrive, and they'll go out of their way and they'll probably start saying, because I've done a bit of this in the past, probably start saying, right, you need to speak to this guy, speak to this person. All of a sudden, I've got some things to go at.
But I think a lot of them are terrible at spotting opportunities that you can help with. I mean, some clients literally refer you 4 clients a year, and other clients would have come across 12 opportunities and not mentioned you once. It's just the nature. Which is why
this
the type of person.
Yes, but hang on. This is why it's all joined up together. Because if you created some content and you've shared that, yeah. I did one the other day, right? And it's a random little thing at the side that I refer to this. We've all got this so-called the advisor's black book, right? It's nothing to do with our day-to-day financial planning and so on. But through the years, I've built up a network of.
Well, it's a life black book, Alan, not just advisors. Yeah. It's a life black book.
A lot of it has been to do with. Do you know a great accountant that can help? I've got this sort of complex tax thing. I've bought a property in Spain. Or do you know a legal person or anything like that?
Carpet fitter, anything.
Well, maybe. But certainly travel agent. We introduce somebody to someone.
Mechanics. Can I throw mechanics in there?
But what I just posted that in a client newsletter. I just said, this is something that we've got, because that's just share your work. And guess what? We had a bunch of people, clients of ours, come back and say, I didn't know you did that. Really interesting. And there was no immediate in it for us, but there's more glue And if you're able to share your work, so as you say, your clients may not be able to identify, spot the opportunity for you. But if you share examples of work you've done in the past, you go, oh, that's interesting. Good idea. So I think, Carl, in summary, it's a bit of both. Show your work, share your stuff, post your blogs, do whatever, and then do the good old school stuff and just meet people face to face, have a conversation.
Yeah, and look, to develop one of the points that you made earlier on, right? If you're humble enough to go out and say, I'm starting out, I'm trying to make a go of this, and you talk to a client who you've done good work for, and sit down with that client, the vast majority of people are nice and they're willing to help. And if you are humble enough to ask for that help, that's a huge start. Because I think you will find people will help.
And be straight up. Don't be like vague. Be like, I've started up a new business. I'm trying to grow it. I need some new clients. Not, so my service, just because they're thinking, where's this going? What does he want help with?
There's a resource for this. Are we going to have show notes as such? But if we have show notes, we can post a link to this.
If Nick can do it, we are.
There's just a shout out. There's a guy called Dan Allison. I met him a couple of years ago, from the US, and he's the only person that I've ever come across that has nailed this stuff and codified this kind of. He calls it referral marketing, where he does. He's got it. There's a lot of stuff online. He's got YouTube videos and so on. And he's kind of scripted. This is what you do. He calls it the advocates meeting. You go out to an advocate and you go exactly through this. This is what I'm doing. Love working with you. If I could have another 10 or 20 or 30 clients just like you, my life would be great, and I'd be able to serve them and deliver great advice and great service to them. And you just ask for their input and their feedback. All of a sudden, you've got 10 or 20 advocates going out there looking for opportunities for you. But you've got to think it through. You can't, as you say, Andy, you can't just do it sporadically without a lot of thought. You've got to go at this because you only get one chance to do this with these people.
Just a final point, but I think it's quite an important point. Again, people don't even know how to close referrals. So, for example, if I'm a financial advisor and one of my clients has met a friend of theirs and they say to me, I think, Andy, you'll be able to help this guy or girl. And they'll say something like, I'll give them your number, Andy, and I'll get them to... All right, I'll give them your number, Andy, and I'll get them to call you. And I go, no, don't do that. What you do is you tell Sarah, I'm going to call her tomorrow, give me her number, but just tee her up. And then I've got then the job to do. Because very rarely people think, I don't want to bother a professional, I'm a bit intimidated, and they won't make that call. It's a minor thing, but you turn the referral round.
A three-way email introduction. Sarah meet Andy, Andy meets Sarah.
Whatever we're doing, don't give the referral, the referee, if that's the job of doing it. You as the person that wants the business, you take the job on yourself. You just give them a heads up that you'll be contacting them, then it's in your court.
Do you know on that subject, we do a client survey, and it's kind of the net promoter score type thing. Would you refer us to your friends and family and so on? And something like 96% of people say yes.
Yeah.
Would. And then you say, have you referred us? And something like 40%, 50% say, yeah, I have referred you in the last 12 or 18 months. Well, I can tell you the data, our phones are not ringing off the hook.
I was going to say, if that was the case, your business will be doubling every 3 years or something.
Exactly. Yeah. And what it is, at the proverbial barbecue and cocktail, like, oh, yeah, you should give Alan a call. He's my guy. He looks after our stuff, and you should give him a buzz. And they don't, because we've lost control of that. And so you're exactly right. I think that's because this is at the small margins, because if people are kind enough to give you a referral introduction, you've got to grab hold of it. You've got to take control of it wherever. And so almost educating your clients and going back to this kind of advocates breakfast or coffee or whatever that you might have with some of you tell them, if you do come across somebody, just do as a quick email introduction and I'll take it from there. So then you win back control of the introduction.
Always thank the person who is making the referral.
100%.
Oh, hang on. Not just thank the person. If you then the person who's referred becomes a client and they're happy, part of our kind of onboarding process, we have this welcome meeting down the track. Once all the sort of the usual stuff has gone through, we always say, would you do me a favor, go back to the original person who introduced us and just say that you're happy with what's been going on? Because that just completes the circle. You go back and just say, thank you so much. I'm really delighted you referred me to Alan. It's worked out really well. Everyone's happy. Thanks again. It's really good. So that person is encouraged to think about, doing it another time.
Just kind of, Nick, I know you want to wind it up. Just one small thing. What we do on that is we have thank you cards, just small cards, handwritten note. Thank you very
Handwritten.
much. Nobody gets post,
Yep.
and they certainly don't get handwritten post. And the power in that is phenomenal.
100%.
Sorry, Nick.
Completely agree.
It's okay. My question was, so you get on your client surveys, Alan, you get 96% of people saying, yeah, they would refer.
Yeah.
It's actually, I mean, this might be my mentality. It's the 4% that would, even though it's a tiny number, the 4% that won't. That would cause me some angst. Do you ever go back to those 4% and ask?
No. First of all, we do these surveys anonymously.
Are you pitching for business, Nick?
Yeah, I'm with Nick. Wait. No, here's
Why would you not refer us?
Here's the thing. I remember I when I was learning how not to do this, I used to literally now and again I would say to a client during wrapping up a meeting, if you know anyone, that old school thing. And it doesn't really work. That didn't work for me anyway. But I did have a couple of people say, look, Alan, just love what you're doing. I just don't refer any. I don't want anyone. I don't get involved. My personal finances, my friends and family, let people do their own thing. I just don't do. It's nothing personal. So I'm assuming it's
right.
that.
So that's the 4%.
I'm assuming it's not. We don't like you at all. We hate you. Would never refer you. It's just I just don't get involved in that sort of thing. That's what I'm got to assume. But our client retention rate, as it was for all of us, is extremely high. We very rarely lose a client.
I think it will be.
As I often say, even the bad advisors don't lose clients, let alone the good ones. You know, the bad advisors don't lose clients.
Tend to be very sticky, and I think it will be that some people will just be they just don't like doing it. They feel it's if it goes wrong, it's on them.
Yeah,
you know, the same way that when people say to you, when I said to client or potential clients, I can't work with you. When we can't work for various reasons, can you recommend somebody else? And I always go, I'd really rather not do. I steer them towards unbiased or vouch for because I just don't. I don't know. I just feel it implicates you, doesn't it? And for some people, that's just not their about. So that'll be the 4% of the two clients that you send the survey out to. Yes, immediate family.
What's next, Nick?
Well, what is next? I don't know. Andy, do you want to have a little talk or not?
Oh, I mean, it's a subject we can talk about. It's the whole concept around your number. We work with various people that are all working on their number, what that number is in terms of, you know, maybe their financial independence number or an amount of money that they're never going to run out of based on those sort of spending patterns. There was a famous book that came out by Lee Eisenberg, I believe it was called. Your Number.
The number. Yeah.
In the FIRE community, Financial Independence Retire Early, they talk about this number. I think they call it their stash. Like, what is that number? And generally, it's worked out 300 times your monthly expenses. So if you're only spending £1,000 a month, your stash number would be 300,000. If you're spending £2,000 a month, your stash number would be 600,000. It's based on the safe withdrawal rate of 4% that we could argue all day is horrendously off or horrendously on. It's just a little bit of conversation around that. Well, what I find is most people who talk about this concept have usually already hit their number that their previous self was thinking about, and now they've got this new number in mind. So yeah, any
well, you know, if you remember reading that, I remember I read that book when it first came out, which is quite a long time ago. 10 years ago.
10 years ago, yeah.
And if you read it, he talks about himself, doesn't he? He's a writer and editor and journalist,
Esquire or something, yeah.
Yeah, but he talks about he did all his research, he met hedge fund guys and big ticket people.
Yeah.
And what he found was that the number changed because you got closer to the number. You got closer. You said, well, I'm now financially independent. But guess what? We've got this kind of lifestyle creep, haven't we? Suddenly now I'm used to going in better holidays or flying business class or first class or something. So the number kept going up. So there's a dynamic within that. And I think this is where a really good financial planner adds a ton of value to really work out, do you really need that extra holiday or that extra first class cabin and so on? Let's sort of, again, talk through that and coach the client, because otherwise,
well, it's the trade-off, isn't it?
In fact, Carl, it was you who said this a while ago, one of your legendary quotes, which I then stole and did something else with, but can't remember exactly. I'm paraphrasing, but
was that after a few pints of Guinness or not?
It was before. It was before, during, and after. But you remember what I was talking about? That you were talking about. If you don't know the number, it's always more or something. What exactly was it?
Yeah, if you don't have a financial plan that has, built in your goals, dreams, and aspirations, so you don't know what your resources, your money is for, then when you're asked how much money do you want or need? The answer is always going to be more.
Boom.
And that is a really, really poor place to be.
I'd say as well that given what we do, which is real financial planning, I mean, a lot of we're not going to get negative, but we all know there are a lot of financial planning firms that do very little financial planning, and we, all four of us, I know, we do it almost exclusively with all of our clients all of the time. And actually, all we're doing all the time is working out that number for clients.
Totally, yeah.
You know, so someone retiring wants to retire at 58 will be financially independent at 58. We do the modelling and we do the cash flow and the graphs, and that's all lovely. But under that is an amount of stuff in their pots they have to have, and it's not going to be a multiple of their monthly spend necessarily, but it's going to be their number, because that's what they need to have accumulated when the income taps turn off. So all the time we're focusing on this number problem, and that's behind this the title for this podcast, the Real Advisor Podcast, because we are doing the real stuff that changes lives, and it is all about identifying that number. Whether we explicitly say you need £1.785 million by the time you're 58, that's actually what we're doing all the time in our financial planning.
The one slight difficulty I have with the number is it's very simplistic. But then again, putting stuff in simplistic terms when it comes to financial planning is probably a good thing. However, I think the real benefit of having a real financial planner is that show God your 5-year plan, right? Things change, right? And goals, dreams, and aspirations change all the time. And certainly when you're dealing with people who have
man plans and God
fairly significant wealth, exactly. That's exactly it. So
if I could just sorry, go on. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, no, just it's way more than the number. There's so many moving.
That's what I was going to come on to.
Do you know what? It's a little bit like your monthly, earnings. I'm sure all of you had. When I thought I was going to be earning $5,000 a month, I thought I'd be absolutely flying. Many moons ago, $5,000 a month comes in, and you're like, my life's not changed that much. Then you're off to the next target, $10,000 a month. If I hit $10,000 a month, I'll be absolutely the happiest guy on planet Earth.
It's called the hedonic treadmill.
Treadmill.
And you're never
going to
get there.
happens, and then you think, I'll have no problems then. The problems are double, they're just amplified. Yeah. So it's a similar thing again with
the first job, value. Giving my age away, first job I had delivering newspapers in the morning, freezing my backside off around the west coast of Scotland. I earned £5 a week. True and Presswick Times, £5 a week, and I was loaded. I was pretty rich in those days, and I've never felt rich, never felt poor ever since.
I think the biggest jump you ever go through is your first paid job as an adult,
because you've gone from you get all this money.
You've gone from
hundreds of pounds.
Yeah, exactly. I think my first real after tax wage was about 730 quid, and I remember being in Harrow train station, putting my card in. 730 quid. I thought,
bingo.
Weekend's going to be amazing. I'm going to spend this on.
Spend it all.
I remember my first one was like, what's this tax shit about?
Oh, yeah.
No one told me about this.
That's what I said.
Welcome to the real world.
I think I was on 1,000 a month, 730 landed.
Hey, can I just
I've never felt as rich as that day standing there on that cash machine.
It was downhill ever since. I can just add another sort of little flavour to this conversation. As you may know, I run another podcast, Entrepreneur Transition, and
go on.
Tell us more about it, Alan, please.
No. I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't want to compete. I wouldn't want to cannibalise our audience here.
You wouldn't,
but it does exist, and you can go on.
Maven money.
But here's the thing: talking about numbers. So a lot of it is conversations with successful entrepreneurs who've sort of built, scaled, and exited, and got a chunk of money. And a recurring theme, not everyone, but a lot of them, is that the money's first. They've got the number. They've got more than their number.
Yeah, way above
whether they've actually worked it out in advance or not. But there's a whole different set of circumstances now, because perhaps they've lost some purpose. They're no longer that business owner. They've gone into retirement, semi-retirement. Identity, purpose, all the things that keep us vibrant, keep us engaged, make us get out of bed in the morning. And this is coming up a lot. And so this is the other idea of this, the real financial advisor, real financial planner, because you have to be skilled at navigating those conversations, because the fundamentals, the mechanics of cash flow planning, as you say, is not, you're not projecting 30 years, but the ongoing relationship you have is a numbers based, it's a kind of left brain type thing. But the right brain side of it is the creative part, is coaching and working with your clients to identify, what is life going to look like afterwards? Because you're going to have something to go to. And I mean, people who actually have sold businesses, but also just regular retirees. And there's nothing worse than someone who's got enough money, but they've got nothing to do, no passion, no vision, no purpose on a daily basis.
Well, Alan, that was the main thing that came out of the people who spoke at Future You was exactly that: the lack of purpose, the lack of identity, and the lack of preparation to go into that third act. Sorry, Nick.
Yeah, I've got a client couple who they built a business. It was predominantly him, the husband. He built a business and sold it. He would have been about age 43, 44, and got millions of pounds for it. And we'd do his financial plan with their financial planning and work through, and they had an incredible spend, incredible lifestyle. And I didn't say it outright because he said, I want this plan to assume I'm never going to work again because it's done now. But this guy is so driven and so bright and just loves the competition, just loves being in it. And so he's now gone back and launched another firm in the same sector that he was in before, because he's now think I can do this better now. Things have changed, the technology has changed, and it's given him his purpose. And bright, driven people, and as long as they got their health, I think it was Andy at the start of the show alluded to the fact that a lot of our clients are never going to retire, even though we've cracked their number and they've got more, because they get so much value and they get so much of their self-worth through their work. And if you're driven and bright and motivated and are really good at what you do, well, those four attributes aren't just going to disappear the moment you sell your business for gazillions. So
well, exactly. See, to me, this is the next frontier, right, for financial planning. Because I mean, certainly when I started, we were way ahead of the game, doing proper cash flow plans and all that.
When you started in Alperton with the wheelbarrow, or are you talking about something else here?
No, after I retired the wheelbarrow, that's a private joke, but people could guess what it means. But when I set up my business, and we were pretty early adopters on that stuff, and way before you boys, and it was a real differentiator to be able to do that. And now it is increasingly common, but I do think the next iteration of that is this much more this behavioral coaching side of things, because it's functional. You get your cash flow. Have you got enough? Well, looks like you have. You just need to sort of care and maintenance, and don't do anything crazy to blow that up.
Or just coaching in general, and having those conversations with clients. There's very few people they can have those conversations with. Certainly,
that's
people
my
have
point.
A lot of money, because
have a
people in their
unique
social
place.
circle, their family, they're not equipped to have those conversations. We have
their accountant can't do it. The lawyer can't do it.
No, the accountants,
they can't. No, we hold that place in their lifestyle, being that trusted advisor. I think it's a fantastic, privileged position to be in, but you have to be skilled somewhat to do it. It's not. I don't know about you. Sometimes I've been in quite long meetings, and particularly if it's with a couple, I'm drained by it. You're giving your very best. You're giving your best advice. You're sort of thinking about all the moving parts, or the money side and the lifestyle side and the family and the kids and all that sort of stuff.
You've got to get into character and get into their world. It's like sort of going on stage, and you have a conversation or a client meeting that's very high. Like there's good things happening, and there's another client meeting, a lot of not so good things are happening. Yeah, we have to switch, but we're very adaptable.
I love the quote that Mitch Anthony uses. Our job is to hold our clients' feet to the fire of their best intentions. And I think it's an amazing quote. But do you know what? Part of the skill is finding out what are those best intentions and teasing that out over time. And you can only find that stuff out by building rapport and trust over time. You can't ask that at the first meeting.
Another Mitch Anthony, he's brilliant at the quotes. Another Mitch Anthony one is: you need enough money to sleep well at night and enough purpose to leap out of bed in the morning. I think he's nailed it. That's what we all need. You need both. You need both of those.
And then you're right. I mean, the client meetings can be draining. It's very hard to fake empathy for an hour. It is for me anyway. I come out of it.
You're doing well so far. What's next then, Nick? Have we done?
Well, listen, Joe, I'm conscious that Tempest is fugiting. Time is flying. So perhaps we'll wrap up quickly. What we're going to do, ladies and gents, with each show is have a little culture corner section, where we just discuss things that we've enjoyed, content we've consumed, books, films, whatever, TV, apps on your phone, a bit of tech that perhaps you've really enjoyed. I'm going to quickly start off and just get the ball rolling. I've just finished a book. It's a bit of a windy title: Fake, Invisible, Catastrophes and Threats of Doom. And it's written by a guy called Dr. Patrick Moore, not the astronomer. Dr. Patrick Moore is a lifelong scientist and environmentalist, and he was a co-founder of Greenpeace back in 1971. So he was firmly on the ecology side and the green movement, but he fell out of love with Greenpeace by the mid-1980s when he realised it had morphed more into an asset gathering turnover machine with thousands of employees, and it kind of lost its ethos. And this book, Fake Invisible Catastrophes and Threats of Doom, it's on Audible. It's very readable.
Snappy
given
title.
It's quite a dry subject.
Snappy title. Bit of a
Yeah, I
mouthful,
know. And it's very good. He just basically refutes a lot of the climate alarmism that's out there. He says some of it is genuine and we should be concerned about it, but there will be remedies. But a lot of it is fake news, is an overdone cliche. But if you come, as I think we all do, from the sort of Matt Ridley, do you know what? Right now, this very moment is the best time ever to be alive. School of optimism, because human history just teaches that you're insane to be pessimistic because all historical facts are against you, and you've got to be an optimist. Well, this book is from that as well. It's saying that things aren't as bad as they are. You've got to see what's going on here. There's a lot of money in the ecology movement. I'm sure one day we'll talk about ESG, because I know some of us certainly in this group have very strong views about whether that is a genuine thing or just another bit of crony capitalism. So I'd recommend that book. That's my culture corner. And you guys,
what was the book called again, Nick? Just to.
Oh my God, I ran out of breath saying the title. Fake Invisible Catastrophes and Threats of Doom by Dr. Patrick Moore, and it's on Audible, so there'll be a print version as well if you prefer doing it like that.
You press one of your buttons.
Oh God, press one of my buttons. I'll do the drum.
Nice.
Strike the veal. Anybody else?
Let me jump in quickly before I forget it. In terms of mine, and I'm just trying to wrap up a couple of things that we've talked about on this podcast, this inaugural first proper podcast. When it was discussed earlier on about building your brand, personal brand, finding clients, starting a business from scratch, there is I think it's a fabulous podcast interview. There's a guy called Daniel Priestley. He'll be known to some of the audience, certainly known. I've been through his own program, Key Person of Influence program. He's an Aussie based in the UK, based in London, but it was him being interviewed by a US-based kind of marketing guy called Chris Do, Chris Do, for his podcast, his whole program, which goes under the brand Future, and that's Future without an E on the end, Futur. But it was an hour's long, really crisp, it just unpacked all this stuff about building a personal brand, how you create content, the frequency, the specifics around it. It wasn't, woolly. It really it was a sort of, from soup to nuts, this is how you do it. I mean, there's so many podcasts and things out there, as we know, that there's rarely time to listen to one twice, never mind 3 times. I've listened to that 3 times now. I just thought it was so good and just drilled everything down. So if anyone is looking at building their brand, trying to, generate new clients and so on, just find that podcast and give it an hour of your time. I think it's brilliant.
It's really good. It's a really good podcast, but it's all about the intersection between personal brand and your business, which some people overlook. And now to sort of build both in a sort of meaningful way, you need to focus on both. That's the advice.
Just a
Nick.
Quick interjection. Daniel Priestley's latest podcast episode has Morgan Housel on it, who seems to be a very popular writer at the minute. So maybe just check out the most recent one if you want to get your latest dose of Morgan Housel. Carl, Andy?
Carl, do you want to jump in?
I'll. One of my favorite books. I've just listened to it for the 3rd time after a summer of excess. Atomic Habits.
Atomic Habits, yeah, classic.
Atomic Habits, yeah, just amazing, yeah. And then I was trying to consider, going back to your friend Nick, who's going out on his own and looking at real financial planning. The 100-Year Life, I think, would be a great book for anybody in the financial planning space to read, to try and just kind of position in their own heads, why we're doing what we're doing. I think it's a really good book. So yeah, they're the 2 I would recommend. And 2 I've listened to recently on Audible.
I did send the 100-Year Life to 2 clients. I think what clients it works really well with is the clients that retire early and genuinely say, I'm retired now. I think I sent it to a 53-year-old. And I was, when anyone who's that age sitting with me, having a financial planning meeting, I'm like, the real problem is how long you're going to live. Obviously, you could pop it in the next 10 minutes, or you could live, 60 years. So filling your time from now until when that point is, I think is their biggest challenge. It's a really decent book, and it's also got parts of it where it's, if you can remember, Carl, it's all about sort of different generations becoming friends now. So like you get like 70-year-olds that are quite friendly with 30-year-olds, and all these sort of weird dynamics that we've not seen before. And a lot more people living on their own and more single household. Yeah, it just goes into a whole load of different stuff. I think it's brilliant. Sort of following on from that theme, I'll go for my recommendation. I've been banging on about this book for a while. It's called Dopamine Nation. It's similar along the lines of Atomic Habits, but I think it's somewhat better, focusing on a slightly different area. It's all about how everyone at the moment is overstimulated, over-pleasured. You know, everyone's addicted to something. And it's got stories about her sort of, I think she's a psychiatrist in Silicon Valley. And it's amazing that someone could put, you know, a 10-chapter book together that I buy for a £5, which is basically free, and their entire career is distilled into 10 awesome chapters. That's why I think books are just absolutely amazing. You get someone's career in 10 chapters for a £5. Anyway, that's why books are so amazing.
Code.
I think books are going to catch on, Andy. I think you really hit something on the head there.
Do you think?
I think
there might be bookshops and they might be selling them.
You should start a bookshop that sells them online.
One step at a time.
Amazon. Just so this isn't a total another echo chamber, boys. I listen to Dopamine Nation, Andy, and I like to I totally disagree. Is it better than Atomic Habits? It's not even in the same league.
I'm with you in that, Carl. And on that, just to talk about, you know, these trendy words like life hacks. Sometimes there's so many books to sort of read and consume. I'm a fan of just listening to a podcast because she's interviewed by a number of people. She was interviewed by Dr. Andrew Huberman on the Huberman Lab podcast. You've got 60 minutes of her talking about it, rather
which
than
will be
7 hours or whatever it is, and just distills it all down. Yeah, which is, to me, it's good enough. Unless I listen to a podcast and think, man, this sounds so good. I'm then compelled to.
The reason why I'm thinking of Dopamine Nation's, why are we comparing the two? Maybe shouldn't have done that, but she's a practitioner. So she's been 20, 30 years sitting in the chair talking to real people. James Clear has just sort of condensed all that we know about habits into a book. That's what a lot of people who are really in the habits space are not too much of a fan of his book.
The point here is that may be a fair point, but I think a lot of the stories she tells are very extreme.
Yeah,
the Jacob story,
addiction
is
hardcore. I think the moral of the story here is we've all got different opinions, and that's fine. That's fair and reasonable. That might be a place.
No, I don't agree with you. I don't agree with you.
Yeah, this might be a useful time, Nick, Mr. Chairman, to put a bow on this and get on with the rest of our lives, please.
I have to say, we've got through the end of the inaugural episode.
We've got clients to speak to, kids to pick up, podcasts to record.
I think we're still friends, right? We're still friends. That's very good. Okay, let's wrap this up.
Portfolios to rebalance.
Thank you very much.
Suitability letters to write.
Thanks, ladies and gents, for listening to us and enduring us for the past 55 minutes. As I said at the start, if you want to follow us on Twitter, @Advisor Podcast, that's how you get in contact with us. Suggestions, feedbacks, that'll be great. And please do leave a review on iTunes. Other than that, look forward to catching up with everybody.
Please do like and subscribe on our YouTube channel.
Please do like and subscribe on our YouTube channel.
We should do this on video.
We should do this on video. I'll just give parroting what you're... I mean, we can keep on doing this forever because the people listening on bloody nothing else better to do. All right, guys. Love you loads. Goodbye. Goodbye, dear audience. And we'll be in touch soon. See you.
See you next time. Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys.